Hey everybody, Nate's dad here. Been quite a while since I've made any videos, but for those of you who remember my contributions to the Zim Knives channel, they are usually technology heavy and just barely connected to knife making, and this one is no different. I am going to relate this back to 3D printing at some point, but it's mostly going to talk about the little board in front of you called Arduino and how we're using it to do some pretty cool things in terms of LED lighting. Okay, so now the 3D printing piece. So a while ago we printed this. Okay, you're going to be amazed. This is a full-size, life-size human brain 3D printed in a translucent PLA that we printed on this very printer. We're starting to build up how it's going to be mounted in a really cool way, but thought it would be really awesome to have some LEDs that would glow inside the brain. But not to do anything in the most simple way. Somebody where I work said, hey, you should check out these things called Neopixels. So what is a Neopixel? A Neopixel is a really cool LED-like device, but it can light up in any combination of RGB, red, green, and blue, which means it's pretty much any color of the rainbow, and it can change colors and intensities very quickly. I'm going to get into the technology of how that's done with this little Arduino board and some software in a minute, but I just wanted to show you how this thing plays out. So this is a Neopixel, there you go, in a plastic bag. Each of those little white squares is an individual red, green, and blue LED, and the electronics that are necessary to drive it and make it change colors. You can talk to each of these little LEDs individually and change the color of each one separately and play them out in some pretty cool sequences, and that's the technology I'm going to get into near the end of the thing. But imagine if we took some of these, there's 8 LEDs, each one of which can have its own color and intensity, any color in the rainbow essentially, and intensity, and change colors really quickly and put that inside the brain. We could play out some pretty cool effects. And I have tested this, and you won't be able to see it too well yet, but I'll show you in the final build in another video how cool it's going to be. But those LEDs, when they're aimed up into this brain, they make it glow essentially in a moderately lit room. So I'll show that coming up. But kind of back to the technology, I'm just going to show you the function and then get into the technology. Now, a warning, it's really hard to film bright LEDs, I've noticed, using these cameras. So what I'm going to do is put like a piece of paper over this, if I can, and kind of try to give you the idea of what's going on. Now remember, each one of those little pixels can be individually turned on, and I've programmed this little computer here in front of you to do a whole bunch of different effects. So the first is just a solid red, and in the solid colors, think of this as kind of a night light sort of effect, where maybe you can see it okay, and where you can adjust the brightness or dim down the LEDs to kind of dimly lit a room or something for a kind of a nightlight effect. So that's the red LED in each element. That's green in each element. I'm trying to get kind of do this at a little bit of an angle so it won't totally bloom out the camera. And finally blue. So that's not at full brightness. I can adjust the brightness using this control down here, which I'll put on the stand for the brain. But from off all the way up to really, really, totally ridiculously bright. So I'm going to leave it at kind of a moderate thing. So those are kind of the static ones. Again, think of that as a little bit of a night light. But then we get into some of the really cool ones. So this one, which let me try with the light and see if that helps. You can't quite tell what it's doing, but it's a solid blue background. Then it's playing out an EKG waveform to simulate blood coursing through the brain in like a beating heart. Then you get into some of the other ones, like this is just a white chase back and forth. Let's try this. No, that doesn't really help. A white chase back and forth. So that's all 3 colors. All the colors of the rainbow played together make white. This is red chasing back and forth. And imagine what that would do under the brain. Different parts of the brain are going to light in response to these different colors. And then finally blue. So those are, again, 3 single color modes. But then you get into the really, really cool ones, which I know you're not going to be able to see at all. But this one here is changing all of the LEDs at the same time through a rainbow of colors. And you can kind of see that on this piece of paper, what's going on. Then you start to get into some combinations of, well, what if we play back and forth, and you can see the colors are moving left to right. And again, under the brain, that's going to be cool. Different parts of the brain will be different colors at the same time. Then there's both. This is a chase going back and forth, and then the colors are changing. All of the colors are changing together. And finally, actually I skipped a mode. Let me see. I must have pushed the button twice. So that's that one, and then the chase, and then there's finally a chase back and forth. Yeah, all the colors. It's chasing back and forth, and the colors are changing. And then back to just the night light mode. So that's the functionality. Imagine that under that brain. It's going to be so cool in the dark. And I'll show that to you when we get it all assembled.